Hey guys, coming at you today with a cookie compilation extravaganza. All the videos I've made over the years to help me stick to keto throughout the holiday season. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia and I'm a pastry chef, and I have been a chef most of my life and now a mom to a toddler. And I'm here to bring you all the tips and tricks on how to make the best, just healthy meals, keto, low carb desserts, meals, and snacks. So if you like this content, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos are released. Leave me comments, give the video a thumbs up, and share with all your friends and family. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new videos every Saturday. Now today, a different kind of video, and a lot of people do this, but it's usually YouTube creators that have a ton of subscribers, like millions. I will definitely put timestamps in the video. I have blog posts for, I believe, all of these cookies, so those will be linked below also if you want to just run and print out the recipe or go check it out over there. But I have 5 videos that I want to put into this compilation video. I'm gonna do a little spiel beforehand and then a little spiel after you watch the video, and then we'll get right into the next video. This came about because I wasn't thinking I was gonna be able to get a cookie recipe out this year. I have 2 ideas that I kind of want to do, so I'm hoping that I can get those done in the next few weeks. With this shortened Christmas season, I'm feeling really cramped for time, so we'll see what happens. Speaking of which, make sure you get your holiday orders in. I only have 3 more shipping days left, so if you want something for the holiday season, make sure you get it in sooner rather than later. I am adding some new products. They're hopefully on there already, so go check out sugarswappbakeshop.com if you want to order some baked goods and stuff for Christmas, if you don't want to do your holiday baking. Now, this first video was my first year doing YouTube in 2020. It's probably going to be a pretty cringy video because I was not the best back then. I wasn't even monetized yet. It was released on December 24th, 2020. This was before I really thought too much about trends on YouTube, and that's how you really get traction, is putting out the right content at the right time. So it was kind of a last-ditch effort, oh, I should do something for the holiday season. So it was shot kind of differently, and it wasn't even a recipe I had tested before. This video only has 755 views. So let's get into the keto hot chocolate peppermint cookie video. Hey guys, doing this a little bit differently today. I thought I would record me trying out a recipe that I already have, which is my chocolate chip macadamia nut cookie. And I wanted to make a holiday one to take over to people's houses because I know that they're gonna have cookies and desserts and sweets, and I need something. So I'm gonna try to make a hot chocolate peppermint cookie out of that recipe, but I still have about 40 hot cocoa bombs that I need to make, so I wanna just make this quick. And I just thought I would just set up my camera, use my new microphone that I got, and just kind of do this vlog style. So let's get started. Welcome back. If you guys are new here, thank you for joining me. My name's Alycia and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. If you enjoy this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button down there. Let's get started on this cookie. I already got my butter pre-whipped for 2 minutes. That's one of the things that makes this recipe different. It actually matters how long you whip something for keto desserts. I'm gonna add in my golden monk fruit sweetener, and I am going to let that go for 8 more minutes. So you may hear some interruptions. My boyfriend has his dad over and they are doing some shelf hanging in the garage. So if you hear any background noise, I'm sorry, but like I said, this is kind of impromptu. I couldn't just be like, no, you guys can't do what you were going to be doing. But I wanted to try to make this recipe into something different, and we'll see if it works because I've never done it before. But I got all my ingredients sifted here. So normally the rule of thumb, if you're trying to make a cookie chocolate that wasn't previously chocolate, you either want to up the fat or minus some flour. So what I'm trying here, which I don't know if it's going to work, is I took out a 1/4 cup of the almond flour and I put in a 1/4 cup of a dark cocoa. I would normally use my cacao powder, but because I wanted like a richer, darker chocolate flavor, I used a Hershey's dark chocolate cocoa powder. Always make sure you sift all your ingredients and whisk them all together before you go to even add them into your cookies. You want everything evenly distributed. Now my original cookie had 3 ounces of chocolate chips or chunks and a 1/2 cup of macadamia nuts. Now because I'm doing chocolate peppermint, I have some peppermint candies from my hot cocoa bombs. So I'm gonna add some of those in there. And I saved my mint Lily's chips specifically to do a recipe with because I've only seen them like 1 or 2 times at the grocery store. Make sure you scrape down your bowl several times. You want it super light and fluffy. Like I said, I'm trying to do this quick because I have a lot to do still. It's only 3 days till Christmas. As soon as I get this dough done, it has to be refrigerated for an hour. So I'm gonna get going on the hot cocoa bombs while that's chilling. And I also want to make another cookie. I want to make a sugar cookie and like frost it with cream cheese frosting. I always bite off more than I can chew during Christmas. That's a fact. Like every year, I always make all my gifts. I always make food for houses. And this year, especially being keto, the first Christmas ever, I have to bring treats because there's going to be cookies all over the place and I'm going to want to eat them. So I'm making those. I ordered crackers online because I know a lot of people are going to be having like meat and cheese trays. Got to pre-plan when you're doing keto to stick to your diet plan. Okay, so I weighed out 4 ounces of the chocolate chips, and instead of obviously a 1/2 cup of macadamia nuts, I'm just going to do the peppermint candies that I made. I just did 2 ounces of those. Plus, I am putting peppermint extract in the cookie dough instead of vanilla. So that's been going for about 8 minutes now, I think. I kind of forgot to time it, but it's super light and fluffy. So I'm just giving it one final scrape down, and then we're going to add 1 room temperature egg and the 1/2 teaspoon of peppermint extract. And then we're going to add in our dry ingredients. Beat that up. So if you haven't seen my other video, the chocolate chip macadamia nut, go check that out. I'll link it up there. But the reason that this is such a good recipe and it's super chewy and soft chocolate chip cookie recipe is I have some arrowroot starch in here, which you probably could sub in a little bit of xanthan gum, not a whole tablespoon. And then there's a tablespoon of gelatin in here that makes it nice and like elastic almost. And it gives it great texture. So I'm going to add that in next, and then we're going to fold in our chocolate chips. Give it a good scrape down. Hopefully this comes out good. I'm guessing it's going to be edible either way, because peppermint and chocolate. Like you might have seen in many of my other videos, I'm not a huge fan of almond flour. So in the future, I am going to be doing an all coconut flour cookie recipe. And I'm guessing the texture of that will be even better than these ones because it's not as grainy as almond flour is. Oh, losing cookie dough. Make sure you get the paddle all clean. And shoot cookie dough all over the kitchen. Pick up all our cookie dough we dropped. Put the cap back on your peppermint extract. You do not want that flying over the kitchen. Stiff dough. It's stiffer than I remember it being, so maybe we should have minused a little bit more almond flour from the recipe. But live and learn, right? Okay, time to add in. This might be too much for this little bit of cookie. Start with half this. Try some of it. Take a little bit more. It looks like Christmas. Also, when you add cocoa powder in, usually you want to up the sugar, and that's the reason I added in my peppermint candies, because I added in some of the dust. Like, it's really like smashed up dust, so it's basically just sugar. So that's why I added that in there, plus some chunks, plus the chocolate chips. I'm hoping it's going to be sweet enough, because the stuff I tried wasn't very sweet. But hopefully once it bakes up, they'll be plenty sweet. Now this lovely mass needs to go in the refrigerator for an hour. And I'm going to get on to making some more hot cocoa bombs. I'll check back when we're ready to bake these guys. And we're back, yay! I literally just finished my other 35 bombs I had to make. If you're gonna make these for Christmas gifts, I suggest it, they're awesome. But if you have to make 120, maybe make something else too, like give everybody one of the hot cocoa bombs instead of 4 or 5 or 6 like I did, because it's a lot of work. This is actually only a third of the bombs that I had to make. So all that's left is packaging those guys up, because I packaged up all the rest already, and I will be done with Christmas gifts. But on to cookie making. So I'm preheating my oven to 350. I got a pan with parchment on it, ready to go. And this is 2.5 hours later. So it chilled for a little longer than I was supposed to, but it's okay. Now the dough is very stiff, so I'm flattening them out really good in a cookie scooper. Whoop. I'm gonna put them down on the parchment and I'm gonna flatten them a little bit. And we only bake them for like 9 to 10 minutes. These are gonna be a little bit harder to tell when they're done because they're chocolate. I'm just gonna keep doing this and show you before the oven and then after the oven. Here is the finished product. Not the prettiest, that's for sure. So it's time to try these guys. They look like a really fluffy, airy cookie. They're not cooled all the way. That's why they're falling apart. And the candy gives it a little chew, which is nice. So here's the truth. I was super looking forward to these. Mint flavored baking chips. Very strange. They taste like they have fennel in them. And even my boyfriend came, he's like, ooh, are these up for grabs? I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't really like them that much. And he's like, what? Yeah, that's strange. They taste like rye bread. But the texture's really good. It's minty. Just when you get one of those chips, it tastes kind of like rye bread. Very strange. But I'll probably still eat them. Because luckily it's just in the chips. The actual cookie itself is really good. So I will put this recipe down below, what I did. I would suggest using a regular chocolate chip from Lily's, a semi-sweet or something like that. Peppermint candies, if you can find peppermint candies online that are keto, definitely add some crushed up candy canes or something to this. It gives it a really good texture. All around, it's a success. They're not the prettiest looking cookie, but they're yummy tasting. So I hope you enjoyed this different kind of video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoy doing this less rigid, more casual kind of recipe video. This was just kind of an experiment I wanted to do. Let me know what you think, and I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye, guys. Okay, so that video was a little rough and I definitely want to revisit that recipe. I still don't have a chocolate like Christmas cookie, so that might be one that's coming out this year, so stay tuned for that. I did use my old cookie recipe. Since then, I figured out a coconut flour cookie recipe. So I'll definitely be using that instead of the old almond flour one. And I am going to be reshooting a hot cocoa bomb video because I just watched that one. I'm not going to watch it along like I've been doing with some of my other revisits because it's a long video and it's I remember it had like 3 or 4 hours of footage. Took me forever. It almost crashed my computer. Like I had to do it in sections and it was a pain. So I'm gonna redo that video, make it more clear, concise, and have that video coming out soon too. But I figured out you can't do the peppermint candies with isomalt. At least I can't. It did spike my blood sugar even though it's a sugar alcohol. So I still don't have a peppermint candy that we can put in hot cocoa bombs or cookies. But in that video, I used the Lily's mint chips. These are much better. So I'm going to be using these in the hot cocoa bombs and probably in the cookies too, because those mint Lily's chips were not good at all. So I think that's all I have to say for that video. Next up is the first video in 2021 that really got me traction. And it was the first time I had seen that. Like, my views shot up, everything shot up, and I was like super excited. Then unfortunately I wasn't able to keep the momentum going because I got married in 2022 in the beginning, and I had to take a break from YouTube, and I lost my momentum. But this video has 95,000 views as of today, and it is one of my highest viewed videos, and it has 3 delicious cookies in it. So let's watch that video. Hey guys, it is Christmas cookie time, which means I got some keto cookie recipes for you. Today we're doing 3 different recipes: a keto peanut butter blossom, a keto sugar cutout cookie, and a keto whipped shortbread. So let's get started. Welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia, and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. And here we make delicious pastries, many from my time as a pastry chef. And my goal is to make the best keto desserts possible. So if you enjoy these recipes, please consider hitting the subscribe button down there, hitting the thumbs up, leaving me a comment. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new keto desserts every Saturday. Today, 3 awesome keto cookie recipes. And I know I wish one of them was a French macaroon, but it has been eluding me for the last 2 months. I've been working on this, and I'm getting the look and the texture of the outside perfect, but the inside of the macaroon is just not the marshmallowy, soft macaroon that I want. So I'm gonna keep working on it, but if I just kept working on that, I'd never get videos out. So I had to try some other cookies, which there are a ton of different cookie recipes. So I thought I'd bring you 3 today. First one we're gonna be doing is the peanut butter blossom, because it has to chill in the fridge for about an hour, and we can make the other 2 cookie recipes. So I got a stick of butter, so a 1/2 cup of butter, and a 1/2 cup of peanut butter. Creamy, natural peanut butter, just peanuts. I use Crazy Richard's. It's 2 carbs for 2 tablespoons. So that's only 8 carbs of peanut butter in this recipe. And I already have a 1/4 cup of granular monk fruit and a 1/4 cup of golden monk fruit in my mixing bowl. Now this does have to whip for about 8 minutes or so. But before we start that, I'm going to show you the dry ingredients that we're doing, because we have to sift them and whisk them. This is just 40 grams of unflavored whey protein isolate and 15 grams of coconut flour. Actually, that's just the whey protein. Just kidding. And then in here is the coconut flour. And then I added 1 tablespoon of gelatin and 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum to hold your cookie together. You can't even tell that it's a keto cookie, because the gelatin and the xanthan gum act as binders that we don't have because we have no gluten. And then the gelatin gives a little bit of a chew to the cookie also. At this point, you'd have salt too if you're using unsalted butter, about a 1/2 teaspoon. And then just a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And that's all going in there. You sift this together. I sift in the air because my bowl is too small. So get an initial most of that stuff down in there. Of course, I can't find my baby whisk. Here I thought I was all set up. Whisk this together just so you distribute that xanthan gum and the baking soda. Had my eggs soaking in some warm water, 1 egg and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So we're gonna beat this until it's super light and fluffy. Of course, we're gonna be stopping to scrape down a bunch of times so that it gets all nicely incorporated. Okay, you can see the color change in there. Give it 1 more mix, and then we're gonna add our 1 egg. Now, you can use all golden monk fruit sweetener, or you can use all classic sweetener. I was just going off a recipe that I found online. I went and took a regular recipe and figured out the keto version, and the one I found was 1/2 and 1/2. So, and I always have them on hand. You like them for different applications. Maybe one of these days I'll do like a pantry, like this is what I think you need for any kind of baking you want to do. Especially because at work now I'm doing keto desserts, and like every time I went to go make a dessert, I'm like, oh crap, I need that too. Oh crap, I need that. And you can't get it at any food distributors. I have to order it online or pick it up at a store. You're all scraped down in there. Add your 1 room temperature egg. It is kind of important to have room temperature because it almost separates if you add a cold egg in, because when you add the cold egg, it makes the butter cold again. So you'll get like it looks chunky, and it'll just take you longer to whip it and actually incorporate the egg. It'll probably happen eventually, but it'll take a while because you need it to come up to the same temperature as your butter is. Also add in your 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and give it a whip until it's incorporated. See, it kind of looks separated, but if it was cold, it would be even more separated than it is. See, it came together pretty quick. You just got to give it a scrape down because you got some egg that sticks to the bottom and such. Like, as soon as my camera's rolling, my cats go nuts. Once you don't see any egg streaks anywhere, you're incorporated. You can add in all your dry ingredients at once. Trying not to spill any, which I actually didn't for once. And start slow, you don't want this stuff all over. 1 scrape down, make sure all your dry is incorporated. This is a very sticky dough, which is why we need to refrigerate it for a little while. That way we can roll it into balls. And then when I'm doing a dough that's kind of stickier than this, I turn my mixer on and kind of let the beater kind of shoot off all the dough. You gotta be careful though, because sometimes it shoots out of the bowl. That got our paddle mostly clean. And then I'm just gonna transfer this to a bowl because we need to get on to our next recipe and we need our mixer. Okay. I'm gonna pop this into the refrigerator. It can stay in there for as long as you want, at least an hour though. If you wanna do this quicker, if you're not making other batches of cookie, you can spread it out a little bit and it'll chill quicker. It'll only have to be like a half an hour if you put it in like a really thin coat in your bowl, but we got other stuff to make, so this is just gonna chill until we're ready to roll it. Okay, on to recipe number 2. We're gonna start with a stick of butter. Again, into the mixer. And you'll see a theme with all these. You gotta beat your butter and sweetener together. It creates less crystallization in your baked goods. It makes them more like a normal cookie. Which you do this with regular too. It's just we gotta do it a little bit longer than a regular cookie recipe. To that, I'm adding just straight classic monk fruit sweetener. This is 96 grams or half a cup. All these recipes, you can get that going and get all the rest of your ingredients ready while that's whipping. It saves you time, and weighing will definitely also save you time. It's so much easier to just dump and sprinkle onto a scale than it is to try and figure out how to scoop. You gotta ladle the scoop in, level it off. It's much easier to just weigh these out. So this one, I did 80 grams of the unflavored whey protein powder. Now, I like the brand Isopure, but I'm sure other ones will work. And also, you could do flavored ones. I haven't tried with these particular recipes, but I do use a chocolate one in my chocolate cake, and it works great. But it does add some carbs a lot of times, so you just got to keep that in mind. And then just 30 grams of coconut flour. And then in this, we're doing a half teaspoon of baking powder. Baking powder makes it not rise as much as a soda does. You don't want like a super domed sugar cookie. You want a nice flat sugar cookie. So that's why we're using baking powder in this. And we don't need gelatin because we don't need it chewy. We just need it kind of soft, and we want it to stay together. So we got the xanthan gum in there. A half teaspoon of xanthan gum. Add that to that. Sift them all and whisk them all. And again, we're doing 1 room temperature egg. And this is completely up to you. If you have a specific sugar cookie recipe that you like from, adulthood or childhood, I'm doing a little bit of vanilla and a little bit of almond extract. So it's up to you on the flavoring. I know some people put like anise flavoring in their sugar cookies. Feel free to do that. I'm gonna get this whipping. We only gotta whip it for about 5 minutes. The amount of whipping also depends on how soft your butter is. My butter's been out for a couple of days on the counter, because I knew I was going to be needing a bunch of butter today. So 5 minutes, because my butter is definitely room temperature. If your butter's still a little bit chilled from the fridge, you might need to whip this longer. Okay, once you are nice and whipped up, time to add your 1 room temperature egg. And I'm adding my vanilla extract and almond. You want it to become a pretty harmonious mixture, homogenized mixture. You don't want it to look too like scrambled eggs. I get that all mixed up. You see it's not really separated anymore. It's not like curdleized looking. You're gonna add in all your dry ingredients. You want it to come together like a dough. Okay, once you're all together, we are gonna chill this one for a little while, but we're gonna roll it out before we even chill it. That way it's like ready to go, and it'll be easier to cut them and pick them up. What I do, of course, keto baked goods, keto doughs, always easier if you just use parchment paper. So this is a nice firm dough. Pat it into kind of a circle. I need my rolling pin. See if we can do it without parchment on top. I have my bands on for a 1/4 inch. That's what you want this at. You might as well just do the parchment on top too. I can see this going badly. Obviously you can double this. This makes 18 small stars. So it's not a ton like most cookie recipes you do for like cookie exchanges. You know, they make like 3 dozen cookies or 4, you know, usually bigger batches. This is just a small batch of sugar cookie dough. Make sure it's all nice and even, which I think we are. This thing does come in good handy for stuff like this. When you know it needs to be a 1/4 inch, you got your bands on there. So this is the cookie sheet I'm going to be using. You need the most space for this cookie. You might still not be able to get all 18 on the one sheet tray. I'm going to pop this into the refrigerator to chill while we make our whipped shortbread. So I'll clean up once again and I'll meet you back here to do cookie recipe number 3. Now recipe number 3 is super easy, like super easy. It is just a whipped shortbread recipe. I took a regular whipped shortbread and I made it keto, and it's pretty much the simplest of ingredients. The only thing I had to do was figure out our flour because we can't use regular flour. The original recipe is butter, powdered sugar, which we're using Locanto powdered monk fruit sweetener, which I actually did run out of powdered sweetener, and I ran some classic through a coffee grinder to get the powdered sweetener. So we're starting with 1 stick of butter again. And this is just 30 grams of powdered monk fruit sweetener, or 1/4 cup. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna whip this up until it's super light and fluffy. While that's going, you can do your dry ingredients. And this is just 40 grams of unflavored whey protein isolate, 15 grams of coconut flour, and just a little bit of xanthan gum to hold it all together. There's no egg in this and no rising agent. It's just all from whipping up the butter and the sweetener together. Give that a whisk. Start the butter. Whoa, flinging butter. And before I forget, I'm gonna preheat my oven to 300 degrees because once this dough's done, we're scooping it and getting it into the oven. With the powdered, you definitely don't have to whip as long because you're not trying to break up those granules as much, but you want to make sure it's all nice and fluffy still. Okay, we're super pale colored. We are good to go. The only other ingredient is a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So we're going to put that in and whip it together and then add our dry ingredients. Oven's ready. This isn't a lot of ingredients, so we gotta make sure it's all in there. A little bit of dry ingredients. Gotta get all that off there. Okay, don't need this guy. We are done with them. Okay, so I just went by their recipe pretty much. They said about a tablespoon of dough. And I know for a fact that this is about a tablespoon. So it's so much easier to use measuring scoops for cookies, and it makes the process so much quicker. So I just scoop them all out onto a tray. They don't spread too much, like little kind of, if you've seen them, they're like little like shortbread cookies. Apparently this makes 13. I couldn't remember. I did this test and then we like ate the cookies like right away, and I didn't even write down how many it made. Got a little bit to each one. We have a tiny bit of batter left. But this whole batch is only 5 grams of net carbs. Now you go and you roll them into a ball, which I always sucked at rolling. I don't know why. It always never made like a ball for me. I don't know. Something's wrong with my hands, I guess. Like whenever I do this, it always ends up like that. Like a dreidel on both sides or something. Even when I used to make meatballs with my dad when I was younger. Could never roll them right. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to have some powdered sugar to dip my forks in. I don't have any more. See if we can do without it. It might stick. Supposed to do Like that. Not too bad. But if you have powdered sweetener, it'd probably be a good idea. If you have a better fork than me, it'd be a good idea. In the recipe, it said like you can put like colored sugar, which looks really nice on theirs. I made my own colored sugar. I just put a tiny bit of red food coloring in my classic monk fruit sweetener. It doesn't stay granular on top though. It kind of just melts, but it gives a nice color to your cookie. So it's up to you if you want to do red and green sugar on top. Red and green would meld together and, you know, look kind of Christmassy. There you go. So these go in for 10 to 11 minutes. You don't want to bake them too much. You never want to over bake keto baked goods. They tend to get really dry. So I'm going to put these in for 5. I'm going to spin them and do another 5. I almost forgot, we got to make a buttercream frosting to frost our sugar cookies with. And you can do this at any point, obviously. But buttercream is very simple. It's just butter and powdered sweetener. And then you add whatever flavoring you want. The thing with ours is powdered monk fruit erythritol was the only thing I found that works for a buttercream frosting. But I don't like the cooling effect of too much powdered sweetener. And to get a traditional buttercream, you have to have a lot of powdered sweetener. Like, I'm talking the one that hardens on your sugar cookies. So if you do make this recipe, just know that it's not gonna harden on top of your cookies. It's only 56 grams of powdered sweetener to 1 stick of butter. You probably need to double that if you want it to harden on your cookie. And then because I need to make it sweeter without adding more of the erythritol, I bought a monk fruit extract powder. It literally comes with the littlest spoon. I think it's 1/32nd teaspoon per serving for this. That's how powerful this is. So I'm only gonna do 1/8 of a teaspoon for this whole batch of frosting. I'm gonna add that right into my powdered monk fruit. Our whipped shortbread are done and out of the oven. You see there's a bunch of butter that has leaked out of the cookies, but that absorbs back into the cookie and makes it super soft and light and fluffy. So don't worry if you see a bunch of butter pooling on your pan, it'll all soak back up into the cookies. So I'm gonna whip up my butter and then I'm gonna sift this right into the butter once I have it whipped up. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of vanilla extract, but you can add any flavoring you want. So if you don't have the pure monk fruit extract powder, you can also use stevia. It came a super small scoop also. Did I put it back in here? I did. This is the size of the scoop that they give you. Super tiny. The monk fruit is probably only 1/4 of this. That's how little you need of that. So you might need a little bit more than 1/8 of a teaspoon of stevia in your frosting. Just add it and taste it like little by little to figure out the sweetness you prefer. That's nice and whipped up. I'm gonna get my smaller sifter for this. I ground up some of the classic for this, which I do not recommend doing that for frosting because it is still a little grainy. It's fine for if you're doing it inside of baked good, but for frosting, it's still gonna be grainy no matter how much you process it. What I ended up having to do at work was actually put butter and the sweetener, I had to put it in a food processor and whip the crap out of it to try and not have it grainy for me because I really did not want grainy cream cheese frosting. In a pinch, it does do the job. It's just not as good as if you already had it powdered. Start on low speed, and I forgot mine has no low speed. So I'm gonna give it a mix first because that crap's gonna go everywhere. Last time I did my stand mixer for this, it's kind of overkill for your stand mixer. Oh, and I bought both these products on Amazon. They are pretty expensive, but if you're just using it as directed for like, this says 1/32nd of a teaspoon is equal to 2 teaspoons of sugar. So this pack will last you a long time if you're using it just to sweeten your coffee in the morning or something like that. We want a nice, smooth, spreadable consistency. We gotta add in our vanilla extract too. Did 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Do whatever you like. Another thing I hate about this is that you got all that on the beater, and I went up to the highest level and it still didn't all come off. Got all that frosting on there and it's a pain to get off. Okay. We'll set that aside for frosting our sugar cookie cutouts. Now on to baking our peanut butter blossoms. Now you may be wondering what we're gonna do for the Hershey Kiss. And no, I did not do something really super complicated and like buy a Hershey Kiss mold. I am just doing milk chocolate chips from Lily's, and I'm putting about 12 in the center of each cookie. And I actually like it better because I always love peanut butter blossoms, but I hated trying to bite into a Hershey Kiss and like the rest of the cookie just falls apart. This alleviates that problem because they're all individual chips and like they kind of melt and like pool together a little bit, but not all the way, and they're almost still like individuals, and it makes it perfect. I think they're better than peanut butter blossoms in my opinion, but that's just me. You let me know in the comments below. But we're gonna scoop these. The dough is still really soft. I'm using my black handled ones now. These will be linked down below. They're pretty much the same as my silver one, only it's a tiny bit bigger. So I just like don't fill it all the way. I just kind of divot it out a little bit. And I hate scooping and rolling like one at a time because I have to keep putting this down. I like to just scoop all my cookies and then roll them all at once. So I'm gonna scoop all these out. You should get about 24 cookies. You can also freeze this dough. You wanna do everything pretty much, smush them down a little bit and freeze them flat, and then you can throw them into a Ziploc bag. And I'll have in the full recipe the ways you can bake them. So if you wanna make these all in advance and get them into the freezer, and then come Christmas time, you will have a bunch of cookies. I always plan ahead. That's kind of what I do. I know some of you out there might wanna do the same. These pretty much are the exact same size as regular peanut butter blossoms. They do puff up and spread out, so make sure 2 inches apart on your cookie sheet. I am gonna have to do 2 batches of this because it is a little bit more dough. Do keep it in the fridge if you're like doing multiple batches, just so it doesn't get too soft on you. Before I forget, we gotta up our temperature to 350 for these guys. So I just have some classic granular monk fruit here. You can use Swerve if you want. I just don't prefer the cooling effect of straight erythritol. So that's just me. So you roll this guy in your sugar, put them back on. You just wanna tap down a tiny bit. You don't need a lot. You need a little bit of help. I think that one I did even a little too much. You can just do a little tiny bit. I'm so bad at rolling. Never get it round. I think being Italian, I'd be able to do this. And you want to have your chocolate chip laid out and ready to go, because as soon as they come out, you got to squish them in there, get them in so the cookies don't harden before you get them in. Using all Lily's milk chocolate, whole batch is 35 net carbs. You get 24 cookies, that's 1.5 per cookie. And that's if you use 144 grams of chocolate chips, which I'm guessing that's almost a cup. Our oven's ready. But that's if you go and count 12 chips in each cookie. But I'm kind of anal like that, so I kind of do that. But so you can use more or less. All up to you. Just figure out your own macros. If you use Chalk Zero or something, which I like their products, I just haven't really used them much. Ooh, which reminds me, I'll show you another thing you can do. Grab it out of the fridge. These are going in for 10 minutes. 5 turn 5. As soon as they come out, you gotta be ready to get your chocolate chips in there. So if you have any peanut butter cups lying around that are keto, you can put those in your cookies. I didn't prefer it actually. I actually just liked the chocolate chips, but I didn't try it after it was like solid. And I think it was a little bit too big for me. Like these ones are the smallest cups that I've seen, like keto cups. But I still think like doing maybe only a half of one in a cookie would be delicious. So I think I'm gonna do that in a couple of them. Back here when those get out of the oven. Okay, as soon as they come out of the oven, start putting your chips in. You wanna push them down real good in the middle. So you can count out 12 chips you want, but you wanna push them down nice. They get that soft mushiness in the middle. Oh, wait, got 6 left. Gotta do one of these in there. I should say, they're not a sponsor. I don't got no sponsors. Okay, so we just gotta let those cool. Okay, I just finished my peanut butter blossoms and I got 27 cookies. I actually took away 72 grams of my chips for those 6 that I did with the Chalk Zero peanut butter cups, and I still had plenty of chocolate chips. So 144 grams of Lily's milk chocolate chips is plenty for even 27 cookies. So let's get on to our sugar cookie cutouts next. So our sugar cookie dough is hard as a rock right now. So I'm going to use my top piece of parchment. I'm going to cut out some stars. So when it's really hard, they're going to be they'll come right up as you cut. Once they get a little bit softer, they might not do that though. These don't spread a lot, so you can put them kind of close together, just like a regular sugar cookie cutout. Careful they don't break on you. It is a very hard dough right now because the butter is really cold. I'll put even pressure down, and when you go to put it on the paper, even pressure on the cookie. That guy cracked a little bit, so we're not going to go there. We'll use that to re-roll. The nice thing about our dough is we don't have any gluten in it, so re-rolling it is not going to make a tough cookie. And when it starts to get softer, it doesn't come up in the mold anymore. Obviously, you can use any cookie cutters you want. Oh, and I wasn't paying attention. Well, that guy ain't going to be used. Go here. So if it doesn't come up in your mold, mini offset spatula, love this guy. We'll be using him to frost with too. Once you're there, what I do, so I don't have to use another piece of parchment paper, I'll put it all on one side and I'll fold it over. Get all your bits in there. You can pick it up and roll it back into a ball if you want. I just do it this way. You might have to go back in and push it together a little bit. There you go. 1/4 inch thick again. Looks like we're a little bit less here because we had some indentation. Squeeze it back together. Cut out some more stars. Now that you've re-rolled it, they're not going to come up in the cutout for you. Pick them up. Re-roll one more time. Am I going to be able to get 2 out of there? It's close. Do it. Yeah. Am I going to be able to get all 18 on here though? We might have to do some rearranging. Get 2 more out of here. Or do 1 and then 1 more. Yeah, we can get 1 more on there. Can we fit 1 more star? There we go. That 18 sugar cookie cutouts. Now these only bake for 11 minutes. I'll be back to show you them out of the oven, what you want to look for. You don't want to over bake these because they will get dry. Then we got to let these cool and then we can frost them. Okay, I pulled these out of the oven. I left them in 11 minutes and then I left them in for another 30 seconds. So they're going to be super soft when they come out, but you can see they're just starting to get golden brown around the bottoms. You want them nice and soft. Whew, and I'm burning myself. So I'm going to let these cool and then we're going to get on to frosting and trying all of these delicious keto cookies. Okay, our sugar cookies are cool enough that we can frost them. So you have a couple different options. Obviously, you can color your frosting however you'd like. I ordered some stuff from Perfect Keto, and Perfect Keto and Super Fat are like the same company now. And I'm like, ooh, sprinkles. So I got some sprinkles, but I thought I'd use those. And then you can also do the same sugar trick that we used for the whipped shortbread. You can just sprinkle different color sugars on your sugar cutouts. So I'm just going in kind of rogue. Like, I don't really care if they're like perfect, which is weird for me, right? I just put on a layer of frosting. You can also do a whipped ganache. If you haven't seen my whipped ganache, that's for my chocolate cake recipe. You can do, if you want chocolate icing, you can just do a whipped ganache. That wouldn't have any cooling effect because you're using heavy cream and keto chocolate chip. So that's another option if you want some chocolate sugar cookies. Just gonna frost all these up and decorate them. Okay, I finished frosting all my cookies. I had just enough for all 18, which is perfect. These were delicious with no frosting at all. I brought them into work naked and people were just eating them up even without frosting on them. They are delicious just by themselves. So I'm gonna put some sprinkles on some of these guys. Gotta make them look pretty for the thumbnail. This is cool because these sprinkles are naturally colored. That's a bummer. A lot of them say like beetroot extract or carrot or whatever. This just says natural colors. I know there's some on the market that have colors listed, like what they use to make them. These are festive, not exactly Christmas festive, but I have yet to find Christmas sprinkles keto. So we're gonna have to do what we gotta do, right? Do some of the sugar. I think this will look pretty. Yeah. Sugar, make them all different colors. Okay, so those are our frosted sugar cookie cutouts. They could look prettier, but it is what it is. I'm gonna get all these together and we are gonna try all these different cookies. Look at all our beautiful Christmas cookies. They're so pretty. And I didn't even mention these sugar cookies for the whole batch. Only 10 grams of net carbs. So good. I'm gonna save the peanut butter blossoms for last because those are like my favorite. But I gotta try the sugar cookie. It's just pale on the back. It's soft, doesn't crumble apart on you, tastes like a sugar cookie. So good. And I take not too many bites of all these. Just so light and buttery, delicious. Now these are even more light and fluffy, are whipped shortbread cookies. These are the melt in your mouth texture. So good. They are just so light and fluffy and airy. And they just disintegrate. They're almost like Loft House cookies. I am working on a Loft House recipe. These are very close. So good. And super, super simple to make. And at less than 0.5 per cookie, you have a couple of these with some milk. Absolutely delicious. Feel free to change up the flavorings in those too, because I'm sure almond extract would be delicious in that. And last but not least, our peanut butter blossoms. They're just golden on the bottom, glistening with the sugar granules. And I love that they're not like one big hunk of chocolate, because you can get some chocolate in every bite and it doesn't just break apart on you. They're super light and airy, but they got that right there where the chocolate is. It's like chewy. Oh, it's delicious. Those are by far my favorite. I need some water. These are the perfect cookies if you do cookie exchanges. For a couple years I did do them, and I'm so happy that I have 3 awesome recipes that I could make for a cookie exchange. So I hope you guys enjoy these recipes. If you try them out, let me know in the comments below. You can tag me on Instagram at Ketoupgrade.info. Send me your pictures of all your delicious baked goods. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe for all 3 of these down in the description box below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys. Okay, I was a little off. It's 94,000 views. But figuring out those base recipes, pretty much every cookie I have made since then has kind of spun off a lot of those cookies, because cookie recipes are very similar to each other. So if you ever have a cookie that I haven't done, you can literally look up like a whipped sugar cookie recipe. And if it's similar to the cookie that you're trying to figure out, like a regular recipe, if it's similar, use that as your base and kind of try and figure it out. The peanut butter blossom is kind of just like I used my chocolate chip cookie recipe basically to figure that one out. So I have spun a ton of recipes off these 3 like base recipes and still have yet to figure out the French macaron. I said it wrong in the video, but I literally have been working on it for 4 years. And every time I stop, I have to redo it the next time to figure out where I was and figure out what worked. It's a pain because it takes forever to make a batch because you gotta let it dry, and our stuff doesn't dry fast enough. And it takes like an hour to dry in a dehydrator in order to get any kind of feet on it. It's a pain. So I'm still working on macarons. You'll notice in almost all my old videos that I say classic Locanto monk fruit. I started saying monk fruit erythritol because it annoys me when recipes say monk fruit, because technically monk fruit is just like super sweet, powdered, just like in the video like I showed. But Locanto advertises it as monk fruit, even though it's mostly erythritol. So you just gotta remember that when watching any of my old videos. And I've since found out, I looked up online how much a cup of whey protein powder is, and it's 1 cup is usually 80 grams. And that's if you like scoop it up, level it out. Not like, the reason I did the 3/4 cup is because I probably scooped it in and then measured it out. But when you scoop it and level it, it's usually 80 grams in that cup. For the decorating portion, I do have a keto sprinkle now. So you can do green and red sprinkles. I don't put them together in one container anymore. I keep them all separate. That way I can pick and choose like what colors I want to put together. That way, if you want to do a birthday, or you want to do Christmas, or you want to do Easter, or St. Patty's Day, like you'll have the colors you want to do different, you know, themed sprinkles for your desserts. And last but not least, Bake Believe has chocolate melts. They're little chocolate discs that are perfect for the blossoms. That's what I've been using, and I put 2 on as soon as they come out of the oven, and they are like perfect for the peanut butter blossoms. So that's what I've been doing since this video and since those have come out. Now, since that video hit so big, I'm like, ooh, I gotta make some more cookie recipes. So I got to testing and I figured out the raspberry thumbprint and the Italian butter cookie recipe. So I was really hoping this one would hit as good as the other one did. It didn't. It only has about 22,000 views. That first video got like 20,000 within like a week or 2. So I was like, I gotta make more cookie recipes. But my raspberry thumbprint cookies are one of my biggest sellers, and everybody that's tried them has loved them. So this was released on December 23rd, 2021. I think because it was too close to Christmas, people are looking up Christmas cookies like the beginning of December instead of, you know, the end of December. But that previous one was released on December 4th. So I think I just hit it perfectly where people were searching for that specifically. So let's get into the Keto Holiday Cookie recipe part 2, the Italian butter cookies and the raspberry thumbprints. Hey guys, coming at you today with Christmas cookie part 2. I figured out a keto thumbprint cookie and a keto Italian butter cookie. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. And here we make delicious pastries, many from my time as a pastry chef. And my goal is to make the best keto desserts possible. So if you enjoy these recipes, please consider hitting the subscribe button down there, giving me a thumbs up, leaving me a comment. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new keto desserts every Saturday. Today, 2 delicious and traditional Christmas cookies. Both these recipes are super simple. The hardest part is that we have to make keto jam. They do have sugar-free options at the grocery store. I just prefer to make my own. So I'm gonna make raspberry jam today, and it is super easy. I'm gonna make a big batch today just because I might be testing some protein-sparing bread, and I would love to try a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I don't have any jelly. So we're gonna make an 8-ounce batch of raspberry jam. You can use fresh or frozen berries for this. Ooh, big chunk. That's too much. There you go, 8 ounces. If I had fresh lemon juice, I'd probably put a little lemon juice in here, but it's not crucial. And to that, we're just gonna add 3/4 of a cup of allulose. It's 120 grams. And I'm just gonna put a tiny bit of water in the bottom just to get things going. But because they're frozen, they're gonna have a lot of moisture in them already. I'm gonna turn this on medium, but this Can be done with the Lakanto monk fruit erythritol or just straight erythritol, but it will crystallize. If you saw my community page with the pictures of the thumbprint cookies, that was made with a monk fruit jam because I wanted to try it and see what happened. And like I thought, it crystallized, which makes it just kind of look a little weird. So I prefer the allulose version. I actually made jam in my biscuit recipe. I'll link that up there for you. If you want to go check out that video, this would be delicious on some biscuits too. I always say if you're going to make something, you might as well make a big batch of it because you'll use it for something else. Break that up as much as you can. There we go. And believe it or not, you do not need any kind of thickener in jam. When I make it at work with regular sugar, I don't put anything extra in it, no gelatin or chia seeds or xanthan gum or anything like that. You just gotta cook it down until it's a thick consistency, and it'll thicken just with the pectin from the fruit. So we're just gonna let that bubble away, stirring every so often. It is starting to get jammy already. Did not take long at all. I believe I also made raspberry jam in my raspberry white chocolate cheesecake. My Cheesecake Factory knockoff. I'll link that up there for you. This is pretty close. You can see it's getting real thick in there. I have a wide bowl to put it into to get it into the fridge because the more surface area, the more spread out the jam is, the faster it's gonna chill. And you want this jelly-like before you put it into your thumbprint cookies. You can strain this too if you want. If you don't like seeds, which I don't really like seeds, but I think they'll look pretty in the cookie. I think we're just about done here. See if there's actually a temperature on this. We're at 190, which I feel like that is a specific number I've used before. I didn't go back and look at any of my other jam videos. I'm sure there actually is a specific temperature for jam. I just go by eye usually. It looks pretty jammy. Not a lot of water left. Very syrupy. That looks good. I need my pot holder now though. Do I have one? Oh, I got one behind me. Okay, so we're gonna pour this into a bowl. Heat proof, heat safe. I'm gonna keep the spatula in it and keep stirring it. That way it cools down faster because you know the outside will get cold or cooler before the middle. So if you keep stirring it, it'll cool down quicker. Well, that's chilling for a little bit at room temperature. We're gonna get on to the butter cookies. We're done with this guy. I have nowhere to put this though. My kitchen's a mess from recipe testing. I looked up a couple different recipes and I tried a couple different things for this. It took maybe like 4 or 5 tests to get like a nice crispy outside, buttery, kind of soft inside. And the one site I read, it said, make sure you have good butter because it's the forefront of this cookie. So I went and bought Kerrygold, which I would love to buy this all the time and bake with it all the time because it is delicious. But I go through sometimes 3 pounds of butter a week. So for me, that's not very cost effective. But for certain recipes, I think it could make a difference. So we're using 1 stick of Kerrygold. You can easily double this recipe. I did last night. Make sure you get all the butter off. Make sure it's room temperature and pretty darn soft. This will make it go much faster. And I already measured out 1/3 of a cup. Well, I measured it at 66 grams. But if you want to measure it without weighing, 1/3 of a cup of granular monk fruit erythritol blend. But you can use straight erythritol. I think because there's not a lot of ingredients in this, even the cooling effect comes through a little bit in this cookie with the monk fruit erythritol blend. So we're gonna whip this for 8 minutes. But before we do that, talk about our dry ingredients. Not very many because you want a nice buttery cookie. So you want the butter to be like the prominent ingredient in this. So I only use 23 grams of whey protein isolate. And yes, I tried it with vanilla pea protein. It turned out okay. I don't like the flavor of pea protein, but it does work. And I did do it with all egg white protein as a test, and it turned out okay as well. They're not the best, but if you cannot have whey, which whey protein isolate is lactose free. So if you just have a problem with lactose, then you can have this. There's also just 1 tablespoon or 7 grams of coconut flour in here. The whey protein isolate, 23 grams, I figured it at about 4.5 tablespoons. So scooping it out of there with the measuring spoon and scraping it off. 4.5 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons or 16 grams of egg white protein. That gives this cookie a little crunch on the outside. And then just a tiny bit of xanthan gum to make sure the cookie does not crumble and stays together, because we are going to be dipping these in some chocolate and we want them nice and sturdy so that we can dip them. So that's our dry ingredients. And the only other thing is a little bit of vanilla extract and 2 egg yolks, because it gives it like a richer flavor. The original would be 1 egg yolk, but when you add coconut flour into recipes, if you don't add a little bit extra fat or an egg, it tends to be dry. So we added an extra egg yolk. So let's get this beating. Enough talking. Flinging butter already. After you first start it, get it all nice and scraped down in there. That way all the sugar gets incorporated. I already have my oven on at 325, but you don't really need it on. This has to chill for 30 minutes. You can turn it on like halfway through the chilling time. Okay, it has been whipping for 8 minutes on medium high. You want it super light and fluffy. Now we gotta sift our dry ingredients and whisk them together. That egg white protein, man. I've been working with it a lot lately. It likes to stick to everything and anything. It makes a mess. My kitchen has been just a constant mess this weekend. Give it a shake so you don't get it everywhere. Okay, whisk together. We just want to make sure that our xanthan gum is like evenly distributed in the dry ingredients so you don't end up with like a clump of xanthan gum anywhere. I just took my eggs out of the warm water they were soaking in. I got a bowl to catch my egg whites. You can freeze them. I looked it up online for like how long. I am gonna freeze them. I'm just not sure how they're gonna act in dessert recipes once they're frozen. So, I don't know, I might do 1 or 2 tests with the frozen ones. And if they don't work the same as the other tests I've done for recipes, I might just, you know, have my fiance just use them in breakfast or something. This just gives a richer flavor. I also read on one of the sites you could use 1 egg yolk. It said something about like higher humidity places or something like that. I don't know. Baking is a crazy science. There's so much to learn. Even I don't know everything. So Google is always your friend. I use it all the time. Our 2 egg yolks are in there. You gotta beat those in. Give it a couple scrape downs. We got egg yolk all up on the edge. Then we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract to this. You would add a little bit of salt if you're using unsalted butter. Okay, once that's all incorporated, add in all your dry ingredients. Trying not to spill them. The egg white protein stay in your bowl, so try to get as much out as you can. And just beat this until it's like the consistency of a stiff buttercream. You don't want it to be a ball of dough because you gotta pipe these cookies into pretty shapes. Too stiff, you ain't gonna be able to pipe it. 1 more beat up. Hey, there's not a lot of ingredients. You gotta make sure that they're all really well combined. Otherwise, if you have a pocket of all butter, your cookies are just gonna melt away. So it's a delicate balance between your dry ingredients and butter. I usually give it a little mix with my hand too after I get like the paddle all cleaned off, just in case there was some parts on the paddle that didn't get some dry ingredients in there. It's like a very thick buttercream frosting. Now we gotta pipe our Italian butter cookies. There are a couple different options. I'll have everything listed that I found kind of online in my blog post. But this is an Etico, which I'm not sure if that's how you even say it, an 867. There's a couple different numbers that you can use. They're even wider tipped than this. This is just something I got in my pastry kit in college, so I had it on hand. This one I specifically bought. This is the tip that you can make those rose cupcakes, if you ever saw that, where it's in like the shape of a dress. I made one of those for somebody, so I bought this one. It's a Wilton 1M tip. These are pretty for just round like rose cookies almost. It's really nice. And then I just used a Wilton 2D also, which is good for a couple different ones. So I'm gonna show you the 1M and the 867 today. The biggest thing with this is you need a stiff pastry bag, or if you're gonna use a Ziploc, use like a double layered freezer bag, because this is still pretty stiff. And like I tried to use my blue piping bags and they have too much stretch to them. They were not working and the tip was popping out. So I just get the disposable ones, but I clean them several times before I throw them out. Same thing with the parchment paper. I used this yesterday to bake Italian butter cookies on, There was just a little excess butter, so I flipped it over and I got rid of whatever butter was on the pan. You don't want any extra butter. You also don't want to use a silk pat or a greased cookie sheet because it'll make them spread too much. So I'm gonna put a little bit in this one because I like that tip the best for piping. So I'm just gonna put a scoop in here. For these, I just put the bag over my hand. You can also put it into a glass and fill it. But because it's such little amount of dough, I feel like this is pretty easy to do. You can pipe these pretty close together. They don't spread or puff up too much. There's no baking powder or anything in these. So you should be able to get all cookies on one sheet. If you use this tip, you probably are only gonna get 18 cookies. If you use a combination, you might get 22-ish. It all depends on how big you make your cookies too. So for this tip, I like it because you can make the roses like that, and then you can sandwich them together and make a cookie. You gotta try to get them even size though. Even I'm not very good at it if you want to do sandwich cookies. I'm gonna do some of those. Try to like end it real nice. I did see a tip of having like a bowl of water to like brush off like the end tip and to like kind of like smush it down a little bit. But with this dough, I didn't see it necessary to do that. There's a bunch of different designs you can do too. So I'm going to try this design with this one too. It's the S one. You just want to make sure you have enough dough in it, because otherwise if you don't give enough pressure and put out enough of the dough, it ends up being too like flat of a cookie. So you just want to make sure you put enough dough into the cookie. Because with this tip, with the thinner lines and the smaller opening, you tend to make really small cookies. They end up flattening out and they're not as nice. Another one you can do with this one, which I'm not too fond of, you can do like a rosette kind of thing. Like that. That's that tip. I really just like it for this design here. And when you get it like that, use your fingers, squeeze it down. Or if you have a bench scraper or something, you can use that also. Here's my favorite ones, is like, it looks like a Milano cookie. These ones. The hardest part though is keeping even pressure and pulling evenly to get them all to look the same. See what I mean? This one uses a lot more dough than that one does. So that's one of my favorite ones. And then my other favorite one with this is like the Starburst look, which I'll probably do the rest in those. Those ones are pretty. And when they bake up, they look really pretty too. You can also do the S ones in this. If I can get 2 out of here. And then what I usually do to like get all of it out is I like twist it and push it as I'm like piping. Finish it. Yeah. There we go. Not the prettiest, but at least I used all of the dough, or at least as most as I could. There's nothing in there. So I did what I could. So we got 18. So that's what I figured for if you use this tip. If you use a smaller tip that has like a smaller opening, you'll get like 22 cookies. But this has to freeze for 30 minutes. I have a test that we can bake right now. Let me get those. So these I froze last night before I went to bed. I pulled them out this morning at like 6:30-ish and had them in the refrigerator defrosting. Now I'm not sure if they're too frozen to bake. It's been 4 hours in the refrigerator, so we're gonna try to bake these. I'm gonna put them on a little bit bigger of a sheet tray. If you freeze them like this, you can just throw them into a Ziploc bag and have them in your freezer ready to go. But when you pull them out, you gotta put them onto a sheet tray with parchment paper to have them ready to bake. I have another piece of parchment paper from yesterday. I did just a little bit of testing over the weekend. I just want to get the excess butter off of the parchment paper. They seem pretty solid. So these ones I did with all of that one tip. I got 18 out of that. They're already softening, so get these in. Okay, these only bake for 10 to 12 minutes. So I'm gonna do 5 minutes, turn them in 6, and I'm gonna chuck them. Then I'm popping these into the freezer. Okay, these were the ones that were frozen overnight. They baked up, they took 1 more minute longer, but you want them nice and golden. Yes, there's a bunch of butter pooling, just like the other cookies, but it soaks back into the cookie, I promise. And don't touch these until they're solid, because when they're hot, they are soft. But the egg white protein, when it cools, it crisps up the outside of the cookie. If you want them even crispier, you can take them further than this. But traditional butter cookies are just a little golden brown around the edges. So we're gonna let these cool, and we'll be back to start the thumbprint cookies. And of course it wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't mess up something. And I was doing testing at 325 for the butter cookies, and then I was testing at 350. And 350 definitely is better. It gets like a crispier outside. So I bumped it up to 350, and I'm gonna be putting my batch of cookies that I made today into the oven. While those are baking, we're gonna get on to the thumbprint cookies. Our jam is pretty much good to go. So this is a very similar recipe. The only difference is you're adding a little bit more dry ingredients because you want more of a stiff cookie. This one is very similar to my peanut butter blossoms in my previous Christmas cookie video. I'll link those up there for you if you haven't seen those. You want a little bit chew to them, so there's a little bit of gelatin, and then the xanthan gum helps with that and helps to keep it together also. And then there's no egg white protein because we don't want this really crispy. So just 40 grams of whey protein isolate. That is 7 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons of coconut flour, or 15 grams, half tablespoon of gelatin, and a half teaspoon of xanthan gum. And that's it. So we're gonna sift and whisk, and then we're gonna beat this for the same amount of time. 1 stick of butter, 1/3 of a cup, or 66 grams of a classic granular sweetener. You can use any one you prefer. But we're just gonna get this beat up until it's super light and fluffy. Okay, so I think my oven lied to me. I really should have a thermometer inside my oven. That makes sure that your oven is running at the right temperature. But a lot of times when you preheat your oven, even if it goes off and says it's at the right temperature, it usually needs another like 10 minutes to kind of regulate the temperature in the oven. I've heard that before and I didn't even think about it. But these took 14 minutes, which doesn't make any sense. You should have been less time than the other ones that were baked at 325. So, bottom line, 350, just keep an eye on them. You want them nice and golden brown on the bottoms and coming up the edges. Okay, I'm all nice and whipped up in here. Now, I know not everybody has a stand mixer. If you use a hand mixer, just really try your best not to skip this step, because our sweeteners don't dissolve like regular sugar. Like most cookie recipes, if you read a recipe, it says whip the butter and sugar for 2 to 3 minutes until light and fluffy. Ours needs more help. Like if you ever bit into a keto baked good, like especially brownies, I've made brownie mixes and other people's brownies, and even I didn't whip some brownies enough that when I bit into it, you can chew the crystals of sugar. And that is like the most unappetizing thing to me, I think. You just gotta whip the butter and sweetener as much as you can, or the eggs and sweetener, whatever the recipe says. So just don't skip that step if you're using a hand mixer. Your arm might feel like it's gonna fall off, but it'll all be worth it. So once that's all whipped up, you just add 1 egg yolk for this one. Put that in, give it a couple scrape downs. We're gonna put in a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Once you're all mixed up, you're gonna add in all your dry ingredients. This dough should be quite a bit stiffer than the last dough. Also, because there's more coconut flour, it'll take a minute to get thick because coconut flour takes a couple minutes to get absorbed. Okay. No need to chill this dough. You might just want to let it sit for a minute while you get all your stuff together. I got to reduce the temperature of my oven, 325. That's why I got all mixed up with these recipes. See, it already got like stiffer from the coconut flour absorbing. Now we can scoop it and roll it. Coolio. You do need some sweetener to roll these into. You can also, I've seen the recipes where you have like chopped pecans or chopped almonds to roll them in. That'd be awesome too. I just try to keep stuff nut free. I'm probably gonna be bringing some of these over for Christmas, so I wanna make sure everything is nut free. Okay, time to scoop it. I'm using my smallest scoop. I'm gonna try to get 16 out of here. They are a little bit sticky, but nothing you can't handle. Feel free to make these completely customizable, whatever you wanna do. You can do any kind of jam. You can flavor it however you want. Like, that raspberry jam would be delicious with some lemon or orange zest in it, or some kind of booze in it if you want. I just like to get them all scooped first, and then I roll them in sweetener. Got 16 this time. I kept getting like 17 and a half. 16 is a good number. I hate having uneven numbers of cookies. A couple of them a little bit bigger. Don't want to waste the dough. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to reduce my temperature to 325. Okay. Now, I measured this out to 2 tablespoons. I'm going to see if it's enough to roll them all, because I haven't measured really. I just add some, and if I need more, I get more. So I'll let you know, but I'm just going to roll all these in sugar. I'm not going to subject you to my horrible rolling skills. Okay, all our cookies are rolled. 2 tablespoons of granular sweetener was enough. I realized I don't think I've ever actually made thumbprint cookies. You do not want to really do a big thumbprint in the cookie. I didn't realize that. I'm like, oh, thumbprint, make a big thumbprint. Yeah, nope. You just want to do a little guy in the middle because they spread out, and if you put the indent too big, it spreads out too much. And I actually found out that baking these like right away is actually the best texture you get. If they're from the refrigerator, they actually don't get the best texture on them. So this is a really fast cookie. We just gotta fill them all now with our jam, which I kept in the refrigerator till the last second. Now, you cannot tell me that is not the prettiest color jam. And it's keto. Like, I don't understand why there isn't a jam on the market that is sweetened with allulose. And it makes like best jelly. It's so pretty. I'm gonna be using this in my wedding cake. It's gonna be so pretty in my cake. Can't wait to start experimenting for it. Okay, now the recipe said a half teaspoon, so that's what we do. Right in the middle. Like little jewels. You only need about a 1/4 cup of jam for all of your cookies, if that. So you're gonna have a bunch left. Okay, these guys are gonna bake 13 to 15 minutes. I'm gonna spin them halfway through. They look so pretty already. You want them just golden brown. This also took 1 extra minute, so I'll put 13 to 16 minutes in the recipe down below. Okay, our last 3 cookies are out of the oven. Look at all of them. I haven't even mentioned the best part about these cookies is the macros. These Italian butter cookies with nothing on them, this whole batch, 3 grams of net carbs. Pretty friggin' low. So 18 cookies, 3 grams of net carbs. So it is 0.16 per cookie. If you want to just round it up to 0.5, if you put like 2 of the bigger ones together, they're gonna be a little bit more, you know? But pretty crazy how low those are. For the raspberry ones, I figured out if I used 3 ounces of raspberries, which I think is what it comes out to when using like a half teaspoon in each. Whole batch for the raspberry is 9 grams of net carbs. So for 1 cookie, it's 0.75. So it's pretty low. It's actually even lower with strawberries, which I thought strawberries were higher in carbs than raspberries. Turns out they're not. So if you do strawberry jam in your thumbprint cookies, they're only 0.6 per cookie. So pretty low carb and delicious. Okay, so the options here are pretty much endless. I have a little bit of a peppermint ganache. It's kind of thinner than a ganache now because it was a whipped ganache from my Swiss roll. Link that up there if you haven't seen that one. But I whipped up ganache for one of my tests, but I keep it in the fridge and I reheated it and it kind of broke. So I just kept adding a little bit of cream at a time until it came back together, and I used it to test the filling on some of the test Italian butter cookies. So now that there's a lot of heavy cream in there, it's a little bit thinner. I'm gonna make a new ganache, which I just found these. They had them on Thrive Market and I found them at Walmart, I believe. So I just have 2 ounces of heavy cream here. I'm gonna throw it in the microwave just to get it steamy. Only 2 ounces of cream took about 35 seconds in my microwave. So I'm gonna add same amount of the white chocolate chips, so 56 grams. Now I've never done this with these chocolates, so you never know how they're gonna melt on you. So just keep that in mind. We might have to adjust here. I have my cream standing by in case this doesn't work. You want it all submerged in the cream. You want to let that sit for a while. So let that chill for now. I'm going to temper some dark chocolate. I'm going to pop this in. I always do 50% power on chocolate, no matter what. And I do 30-second intervals and stir every once in a while to make sure you're not burning the chocolate anywhere. If you want a very detailed video on tempering chocolate and a blog post, check out my hot cocoa bombs that I did for last year's Christmas gifts. That was insane. Never do that again. I'm also gonna add a little bit of coconut oil just to help it smooth out and to melt better. You can also use, a lot of people use cocoa butter. Do that also. Just cocoa butter takes a lot longer to melt. We're almost there on the chocolate. We can probably give our ganache a stir now. We gotta let this cool for a while to get it down to like room temperature so that it's gonna be able to be piped inside of these guys. I don't have my thermometer. We're at 93. So if all this melts, we wouldn't have to temper it because these chips would temper it already. It brings it down to 80. I think it needs a little bit more coconut oil. You can see like how thick it is. It's not very like flowy. So that means you need to add a little bit more coconut oil to it. A little bit at a time. I have measurements in a lot of different videos because I've actually measured it out before, but when I do this, I usually don't measure. So we're just dipping some cookies here. See, it's a lot more flowy, tiny bit more, and most of the chips are melted. Now to decorate, there are a lot of different options. I moved my other cookies way far away because I'm going to be doing pistachios on some of these, and I didn't want to contaminate any of the other cookies with nuts. No EpiPens used on Christmas, please. I'd feel like so horrible if like one of my things caused that. Ugh, scary stuff. We're at 88, which is pretty much where we want to be. Start dipping. Now you're like nice and flowy. Okay. These guys are a little bit too big and thick to be sandwich cookies, I think. So we're gonna dip these guys halfway in chocolate. And then I got some keto sprinkles. Probably should chop up some nuts. Surprisingly, the ones at Walmart did not have any bad oils on them. Just dry roasted pistachios and sea salt, so I was excited about that. You can also obviously use your food processor for this if you're gonna do a bunch of them. They aren't the easiest nut to chop. Since that really didn't dip enough, you can always like kind of tilt your bowl. There you go. You get a bunch on there. Just like dunk it and it'll like pull off the excess. There you go. Go with pistachios. Yeah, it's festive, yay. Wish we had some prettier sprinkle options for Christmas. I think those are my favorite ones. No contaminating my sprinkles with nuts. And sandwich and dunk too. And dunk half of it in chocolate. Ah. Yeah, it's fancy. Obviously, sprinkle any nuts you want on here. The options are endless on these guys. Have fun with it. Make whatever you want. Hopefully it'll set up. We might need to add more chocolate to it. Sometimes white chocolate is just a pain in the butt like that. Ooh, maybe we can just add some of this to it. The white isn't really a pretty like decoration either. Like it's like kind of like opaque colored. It's kind of weird looking. There, that starts to make it thicker. It's a little bit better color. Now it looks like hot chocolate. Again, this could make your stuff seize on you, so don't be surprised if my stuff gets all weird looking. Chocolate can only take like a certain amount of liquid. A fine line that keeps it from seizing. I was just gonna melt the peppermint chips, but I had a feeling that was gonna be a pain in the butt too, because white chocolate melting is a pain in the butt. Okay, I think we got it. We just gotta wait until it's like thick enough to spread on our cookies. Get my mini offset. See it got thick there? Let's spread it. Want a little bit in the middle. Then you can sandwich it like a Milano cookie. It looks so good. You gotta let that harden. These are like, they are nice and crispy on the outside, and then they're like soft and buttery on the inside. Super good. Looks good. We gotta let all these harden now. And then I'll be plating them all up and giving them a taste for you guys. See you back here. We got 2 delicious plates of cookies. So excited. Oh, they look so pretty. This looks like jewels on top. Shimmery from the sugar on the outside. They are super buttery and tart. Raspberry jam on top. Sweetness level of your jam is completely up to you. Taste as you go. If you think you need more sweetener in it, go right ahead. The raspberry is so good in there. I want to eat the whole thing. I'm not gonna. No one would say those are keto. They would never know. It's so good. There's no like crystal sugar inside the cookie. It's just like crispy on the outside of the cookie. So good. And these guys, they're so pretty. They look like a picture. They look exactly like the Italian cookies online that I was researching before making these. They look so spot on. And I'm so excited to have these and for you guys to try them. I don't know if the chocolate's completely set, but I couldn't wait any longer. And the chocolate's not completely set, but it's like pillowy inside. But they're like that melt in your mouth buttery texture. So good. I've been snacking on these for like 2 days. So delicious. I hope you guys enjoy this second installment of Keto Christmas cookies. If you've made any of my other recipes, you have pretty much everything on hand because I try not to vary my recipes too much. That way you don't have to buy a lot of extra ingredients, just the ones that I use over and over again. Most of my recipes contain those ingredients, so I hope you guys are able to make this for your Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Let me know in the comments below how everyone enjoyed them. You guys can tag me on Instagram at Ketoupgrade.info with all your delicious keto baked goods that you make. I would love to see them. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys. Sorry about how the lighting's changing. Now it's sunny and the sun has moved. But those two recipes are really awesome recipes. The butter cookie can be a little bit tricky to come out correctly because if you don't weigh your ingredients, the slightest little off measurement on your ingredients will make them spread too much. So you don't get that nice pillowy inside texture. One of the big ones is the egg white protein because it's so hard to measure out. I think it's probably more like almost 3 tablespoons. Like if you do it, it's just really hard to get it like 'cause it's so light and fluffy. But speaking of the egg white protein, you can swap out egg white protein and like I said in there, pea protein in crispy recipes that don't require a ton of flour. A cake recipe has the same amount of butter, but like twice the amount of eggs and usually has milk and a bunch more flour. So I've tried it in those recipes and it doesn't work as like a swap out. But in crispy cookies, it does work. It's just, I don't like the texture as much and it doesn't taste as good to me, but it does work in those. I do have a jam recipe now, so I'll link that up there for you. I also have a chocolate tempering video where I did chocolate covered strawberries. So instead of my hot cocoa bomb video, which is kind of just a mess and all over the place, I'll link that up there for you also. I said in there that any 1-for-1 sweetener will work. I know they have allulose 1-for-1s, and allulose will not work for cookies, especially swapping the entire amount out because it holds on to moisture and browns really fast. So you'll have really soft, crumbly cookies, and if you keep baking them to get them crispy, they're going to be burnt. So that's one thing I didn't really know until, you know, not recently, but obviously after this video. And I was down to my goal weight here and engaged, and my wedding was coming up. I was so excited. And then my chef left me at my work and it turned into a mess because I had to be an executive chef, plus I needed to be the sous chef. So I had to do a lot, and I ended up putting out my wedding cake videos and stuff, a couple of them after the wedding, because it was all too crazy and people were having COVID. We were shut down for a while and stuff like that too. So it was just a mess. I am doing the hot cocoa bombs again against my better judgment. I noticed in this video, I'm like really excited and I want to get back to that. I think one of the reasons was I was so confident with my being down to my goal weight and everything. And I was just having more fun with it. I mean, but it was also pre-baby. So my life is consumed with that now too. So I feel like maybe I'm just more stressed out with trying to get recipes out and stuff, plus trying to run the business that I'm trying to build. So watching that reminds me that I want to get back to that. Maybe one of these days. Now, next I was gonna put a pizzelle recipe. I'll link it up there for you. It wasn't like for a Christmas video, but I know pizzelles are huge at Christmas time. So I will link that up here, but I'm not going to put it in this video. So the next video is the Mexican wedding cakes and Snickerdoodles. That was put out in 2022 on November 19th. This one must have had pretty good timing too. It does have 18,000 views on it. So this again was when I was on my uptick because I sent my bread to Series Keto and I thought I was going to be shipping, so I got a lot more followers from that, I think. And then I had to take a break again because I had a baby. So let's get into the Mexican wedding cake and Snickerdoodle. Hey guys, it's that time of year again. It's time to bake some Christmas cookies. So today I got two recipes for you. One, a chewy keto Snickerdoodle cookie, and the second one is a keto Mexican wedding cake. Now this is something I had never eaten because it was one of those things I just passed up because I went for the chocolate thing and I just thought it looked boring. But oh my god, these keto Mexican wedding cakes are melt in your mouth delicious. And both of these are only 1 carb per cookie. So let's get started. Okay, we're gonna start with the Snickerdoodle cookie first because for best results to get the chewy center, it's best to have them in the freezer for a while. So we'll make that dough, roll it all up, get it in the freezer, and then we'll make our Mexican wedding cakes. Those have to chill for a little bit, but not as long. We're starting this guy with 2 sticks of butter. I use salted. You can use unsalted. Just add like half a teaspoon of salt to your cookie dough. I just hate buying 2 kinds of butter. I always seem to be out of the one I need at the time. We're doing 240 grams or 1.25 cups. I'm doing classic monk fruit erythritol blend. You can do straight erythritol. You need a 1-for-1. All my recipes, unfortunately. I don't want to deviate from this because it's going to be a whole relearning experience. One of these days, I'll be able to have time to experiment with recipes with just using like a tiny bit of stevia or a tiny bit of sucralose or something like that. But right now, I don't have time because you need all that bulk. It's a 1.25 cups. If you use Splenda, it's like a teaspoon. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a completely different recipe. So you got to use a 1-for-1 sweetener. And allulose doesn't work in most baking because it holds on to too much water. You can maybe swap out a tiny bit for this, but it'll brown really quick and it'll be really soft. So if you add too much, it'll be so soft they'll just break apart and fall apart. I'm gonna do a whole video on sweeteners eventually, but a lot of you guys ask and I try to answer all your comments, but it's not easy. We're gonna beat this until it's super light and fluffy. That's the way to get non-grainy baked goods, and it also helps with the cooling effect of the erythritol. While that's whipping, we're gonna get the rest of our dry ingredients going. I used a variation. I tried to take some things out of this and replace them with other things. Kind of my base from my chewy soft chocolate chip cookie recipe. I tried following a Snickerdoodle recipe and it wasn't coming out soft and chewy. So I went back to my original recipe. So it's 60 grams of whey protein. You should be sifting all this. The whey just doesn't always go through my sifter. I've heard you can use egg white protein for whey. I have not tried it. I would think you'd get a crispy cookie, but I could be wrong. The keto baking is completely different. Things happen that you don't understand. It's not taught anywhere yet, so it's all experimenting. I've also heard beef protein isolate works, and I have tried pea protein. I just don't like the taste, so it's up to you guys. 42 grams of coconut flour. So how I get my crispy cookie is I use a tablespoon of beef gelatin, and then I use 2 teaspoons of arrowroot starch. probably get away with using some cornstarch if that's what you have on hand, but I believe you need more arrowroot than cornstarch. You'd have to look up the ratios. And then just 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Instead of the gelatin, you might be able to use a bunch of xanthan gum, but I found that you don't really get chewy with just xanthan gum. You get kind of gluten-y, not chewy. And that's it. Sift and whisk, and then we are just adding 1 egg and some vanilla extract. Scrape this down. Got some whole butter there. I think in the original chocolate chip cookie I said like 8 minutes, something like that. You want to whip this for quite a while until it's super fluffy and it's no longer grainy. And then the last thing we need is just cinnamon and sugar, which I found the best was the erythritol, but I did do it with allulose and Boca Sweet. They both worked, but it seemed to make them spread more. Don't know why. It's just, that's what happened. So just so you know, they're going to be more flat and less chewy. You're probably going to have to cook them a little bit less so that they don't become too crispy. So there's a 1/4 cup of 48 grams of classic monk fruit erythritol and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. So we're gonna roll our balls in some cinnamon sugar and then get them into the freezer. That looks super light and fluffy to me. We need 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And we're gonna add our 1 egg. And then our dry, and we're gonna scoop and roll. You don't want any pockets of just butter, because that'll severely misshapen your cookies, because the butter pocket will melt and your cookie will be all weird and spread out. And make sure you're nice and mixed. You can just keep going on the mixer if you want, but time to scoop them. So the nice thing is you can do all this ahead of time, freeze them, throw them in a Ziploc bag, and then just pull them out and bake them when you need to. So you can do this way ahead of time. What I do, I domed mine a little bit in my smallest scooper. I just scoop them all and then roll them all in the cinnamon. Should get about 24 cookies. Apparently I took a guess when I did my recipe and didn't actually count how many cookies I got. Getting way more than 24. I was doing a bunch of experimenting with like different cook times, freezer, fridge, different sweeteners I was rolling in. So I kept just scooping some, doing an experiment, scooping some, doing an experiment. So I probably lost count at some point and I just estimated 24. We'll see how many we get. Okay. Roll. You saw last year's videos, you know I suck at rolling cookies. I do have 5 other Christmas cookie recipes. I'll link them up there for you. I guess it's just best to do one at a time. I'm trying to make it quicker, but I think it's just making it harder. And it looks like we got 32 cookies. These are best if they're frozen for, I found, at least 30 minutes. Like I said, you can freeze them completely and cook them from frozen. It'll be good to go. Oh, popping these into the freezer. Bye for now. Now to clean up, and we'll get on to the Mexican wedding cakes. Now, like I said, this Mexican wedding cake, I had never eaten one before. I had never even made a Mexican wedding cake. So when someone had asked, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's kind of boring, but whatever. So I look up a recipe, and I notice it is almost exactly the same as my whipped shortbread cookie. So I didn't have to change much because I had already figured that out. The only difference was adding in crushed pecans. You can do pecans, walnuts, and I think someone even had almonds too. So you can probably do any nut you want. The recipe I looked up though was super simple. It was just butter, powdered sugar, flour, and the pecans. And that was it. And I made it using my whipped shortbread recipe, which is very similar to that. And it came out like perfect. The only thing is it wasn't domed. Like a traditional Mexican wedding cake has like the dome on it still. But It was so good. I tried a couple different things to get it to keep its shape a little bit more, but I could not get it to completely stay in the shape of the dome. And I did not want to add more flour or anything to it because it was so good and melt in your mouth that I didn't even want to mess with the recipe. So, it doesn't look exactly like a Mexican wedding cake, but it tastes amazing. Now, my original recipe was only 1 stick of butter. I am tripling it because I love this cookie so much and I want like 30 something of them. So I'm doing it times 3. So 3 sticks of softened butter and then 90 grams of powdered sweetener. You can probably use Boca Sweet in this. I would not suggest allulose because it'll be too soft. 90 grams. We're gonna beat this until it's super light and fluffy, just like our other cookies. I bought a new monk fruit erythritol blend powdered, and just like the off-brand Not Locanto I bought of the other two, classic and golden, they both are more powdery. While that's going, we're gonna weigh out our dry ingredients, which I already got 120 grams of unflavored whey protein isolate, and the only other thing I need is 45 grams of coconut flour. Should be 6 tablespoons. It's those 2 things, and then we need 3/4 of a cup of chopped pecans. I have some already here, but I'm gonna make some more. All I do here, put it in a bag, crush them up like this. 1/4 cup is 28 grams, so should be 74. Oh, I actually might have enough, right? 28 plus 28 is 56. It's another 28, 66. No, I can't do math. 84. Oy vey. Still have enough though. So I still have some chopped here. I just started with Great Value pecan pieces. I got these to make pecan pie easier. Then you just put it in a Ziploc and roll it with a rolling pin and you can get it all nice and crushed up. Or you can use a food processor. This does have to chill for a little bit if you want some dome on it, so they're not completely flat. But you can throw them right in. They still turn out delicious. They just are a little bit flatter of a cookie. Still quite a bit of butter just hanging on the sides. So we're gonna whip it a little bit more. I'm gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. And I almost forgot, we still do need a little bit of xanthan gum in our mix here. 3/4 of a teaspoon. We're gonna let this mix up a minute and get that in our dry ingredients. Add all your dry ingredients. Until it forms a dough. We're going to mix in the pecans by hand. Okay, we're going to do the same scooping with these, only we don't need to roll them. We're just going to keep them as they are, and they're going to go in the fridge. Once we're done with that, we can preheat our oven to 325 for our Snickerdoodles and get those baked. Can't wait to make cookies with my kiddo. $33. I got 35 last time. That's okay because I'm putting them in packs of 3 for the case, so that works out good. So into the fridge, and I'm going to preheat my oven to 325 for the Snickerdoodles. Okay, let's bake some cookies. So you want to put these pretty far apart. They do spread. The biggest trick to these is to not overbake them. If you do, they will not be soft and chewy. They will be crispy. So I found the best time directly out of the freezer is 13 minutes in my electric oven. Go under rather than over on these cookies. I can't vouch for any other ovens. Everybody's ovens are different, but make sure they don't roll before you put them in. Otherwise, they will roll into each other, and then when they spread out, you'll have one big cookie. I'm going to start with 6 minutes. And then I'm going to turn it, give it another 6, and see if I need that one more minute. Okay, if you did it right, they should look like that, or even more like a ball. Whoa, I'm only going to do 6 more. Okay, this is 12 minutes. You do not want to overbake them at all, so I'm going to take them out now. You just want them a tiny bit cooked around the edges and still very soft in the middle. I'm going to let them cool completely before we move them. I'm going to get a tray ready for our Mexican wedding cakes. I'm gonna turn the oven up to 350. I'm not gonna bake all the same ones all at the same time right now. Do that later. So once the oven's up to 350, we'll get some Mexican wedding cakes in. Unlike the Snickerdoodles, these don't spread too much. So you can do 3 by 2 and straight into the oven. And these I found out, let's see, 8 minutes. So 4, turn them forward at 350. Now while you're waiting on the Mexican wedding cakes, we gotta sift some powdered sweetener. It works with erythritol and powdered monk fruit erythritol. Boca Sweet is what I've been using. It is very expensive, but it has no aftertaste whatsoever. I hate this stuff because it's expensive and it is like the clumps are hard as a rock. It's crazy. Like you have to sift every single little bit of it because it's so hard. But there's no cooling effect or anything. Powdered allulose. I've used a powdered allulose monk fruit blend. I won't say the name of it, but I used it for frosting and it made my cake wet. Like, I don't know if it's because my cake is so moist that the allulose like draws out the moisture of my cake or something, but allulose holds on to water. So I feel like if you dust these in allulose, it might get wet after a while. But that's just a theory I have. My allulose isn't very powdered, so like I'm not going to use it as a powdered sweetener. And I'm not going to blend it in a blender. I don't got time for that. I barely have time to breathe nowadays. So you can do whatever you'd like if you have a powdered sweetener you prefer. But I found the Boca Sweet hits most of the marks. I bought like 7 and got it for a little bit cheaper. But you're going to need quite a bit of powdered sweetener. I didn't weigh this. Just sift out what you think you're going to need. You can sift some more if you want. You're going to be doing it batch by batch. So now this is about a cup probably. We'll see how far it gets us. Hey, that's been 4 minutes. We're gonna turn them another 4, and we're gonna pull them out. We don't want to overbake these either. Okay, that is 8 minutes. So, barely want them cooked. But you'll notice there's butter pooling. You want that all to get soaked back up. And once it does, and it's a little bit cool, you want to give it its first dunk in the powdered sweetener. The original recipe said to do it right away, but our baked goods need to cool a tiny bit because they're really fragile right now. They'll soak up that butter and get a little bit harder, and then you can dunk them into the powdered sweetener. Okay, all the butter is pretty much dissolved. They're just warm. I'm gonna give them a little dunk in there. Gentle with them still. Powdered erythritol does coat a little bit better, but I don't really like straight powdered erythritol or monk fruit erythritol even. You're gonna give another dunk later too. Back to give these another little dunk. I'm gonna let everything cool completely. Show you the Snickerdoodles now that they're getting cool. This is how you want them to look. So they're nice and soft in the middle. We're gonna eat that one, it looks so good. But it's like, it's gonna be soft and chewy. We'll be back in a while to try these. God, we get a good break. Like super soft and chewy in the middle. There's like air pockets in there. Super soft. Super buttery. If the erythritol cooling does bother you, it's gonna happen on these. It's a little bit cooling. Like I said, you can do the Boca or allulose. You just might have a little bit more spreading. They're really good dipped in some milk. Or nut milk. Mexican wedding cakes. I'm gonna grab, I have 1 pack left in my case. I'm gonna eat those and take the rest home for Adam. So after being in my case, still have a decent amount of powdered sweetener on them. Still look like Mexican wedding cakes. Bet they're still delicious. Can't wait to eat one. I was on the phone with Adam. I told him I made these. Like, bring some home. Gotta bring him a couple home. They are like melt in your mouth. It's so hard to describe. Like, I didn't think that they were gonna be that good. Like, I'm like, what's the big deal with these cookies? But they're really, really good. They're just so soft and they just like melt in your mouth. So so good. I literally gotta stop myself from eating all this stuff all day long. So hard. I hope you guys try out some of my Christmas cookie recipes this year for your holiday festivities. These ones are so easy to make with your kids. They'll love rolling them out and baking them up. I'll definitely link my other ones. I have a sugar cutout cookie, a thumbprint cookie, butter cookies, peanut butter blossoms, and my whipped shortbread. So you now have 5, 6, 7 different kinds of cookies, and I have 2 more on the way. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys. Okay, so that was Mexican wedding cake or snowballs and snickerdoodles. That was when I was pregnant and I was working at a bakery. I had opened up my own bakery. And so I was literally running the shop, editing videos, testing, and shooting videos. Every day I was there, which I was there like Monday through Saturday usually. So that view wasn't the best, but those recipes were delicious. I mentioned in the video that I was gonna work with trying to put just stevia in some of my recipes. I haven't done any of my cookie recipes, but I have done cake recipes, and I have minused the erythritol quite a bit in a lot of my cake recipes, and I completely took it out of my pumpkin bread recipe and just replaced it with powdered stevia, and that worked. So I have not worked on cookies yet, but that will probably be the next thing that I work with, probably with Van, because I don't like to give him too many sugar alcohols. So I might try some recipes with him. I definitely had baby brain during this video. While I was pregnant, was just my brain didn't work correctly at all. And the only other thing I want to mention is that the xanthan gum. I have a lot in this recipe in both of these. Now I only use half the amount of xanthan gum in most of my recipes. I've tried 3 different brands and they were all stronger than when I figured out all these recipes. And the only reason I know is because I try them in my old recipes and my batters are super gloopy and thick, and I know it's just too much. So now I'm gonna probably just stick with exclusively Anthony's, because that way I can tell you guys and you can get it on Amazon, and that way you know that the recipes will come out correctly. Oh, and I did make a sweetener video, so I'll link it up there, talking about all the different sweeteners and all the different things I've learned over these 4 years of doing keto recipes. So up next is the last holiday cookie video I have shot from 2022. Last year I was too busy making cookie platters and making all my recipes to sell. I did tons of platters and tons of cookies for the holiday season, and I was just so busy I couldn't even try and figure out new recipes. I do have some other cookie recipes besides this. I'll have my cookie playlist linked at the end of this video. And it has, I got a carrot cookie, I got a pumpkin cookie, I got a lemon cookie. So I have a lot of different other cookie recipes that weren't specifically holiday. But this is the last one I put out on December 3rd. This one, not many people saw. Only 8,000 views. And it says it was a year ago, but come next week, it'll probably say 2 years ago, because I was still pregnant. So let's get into the crispy and chewy ginger cookie recipe. Hey guys, coming at you today with another Christmas cookie video. I'm still baking my Christmas cookie. And I'm shooting in my new bakery, so give me some grace here, because this is the first time and the only one for a while, because I have a bunch of videos already shot. But this one was supposed to be shot at my other bakery. If you saw my life update from this week, I'll link it up there if you haven't. That all got messed up. So I'm gonna do it here. It's only half set up, so I'm not gonna do a little tour. That might be the next video. And I also haven't made these cookies in 2 weeks because I was supposed to make the video right after I figured these recipes out, and I didn't take good notes. So I'm gonna share the recipe with you There might be some caveats that I have to throw in here or there because I don't know how many. I'm not sure of the temp, so we're gonna do our best here. Today we're doing keto soft baked ginger cookies and keto ginger snaps. So let's get started. I also have never used this oven to bake cookies in. I've only baked a turkey and a batch of my bread, but I have it set at 350 and I have the convection off. So this is just a gas regular oven at this point. These are my notes that are a mess. We're gonna start with the soft baked because I believe they have to freeze for 15 minutes at least. And it actually might be 325. We're gonna bake the snap ones first, which I think I ended up doing 350. It's my scribble. This was like the last final recipe, but I didn't write any times or temps on it. Go me. Okay, let's get started on this. I have the recipe in here for the soft bakes. I did have those in my case, so I had to figure out the macros on them. So we're gonna go by this. So first things first, I have softened butter, 8 ounces, which is 2 sticks. I also, be sorry if the sound isn't good, the lighting isn't good. Literally, I just got this place kind of organized yesterday, enough to do this video. So, doing 2 sticks of butter in here. Sweeteners, we need to talk. Sweeteners. Because I purposely used Swerve in this. Because there are different ingredients that make it more like a packable brown sugar. So 240 grams, which should be a cup and a quarter. This is like packable brown sugar, okay? Which means this has moisture in it. This stuff here that is just granular, almost like a sugar in the raw, there is less moisture in here. So baking is a science. If you add more moisture, you gotta add more dry ingredients. So if you go to switch these out, they may turn out, but they may not be the right texture I'm going for here. All right, and the furnace is down here. I turned it down, but sounds like it's kicking on anyways. We're gonna beat this until it's super light and fluffy. So most of these recipes called for molasses. So I made sure to like kind of up it for the molasses in the cookies, or to add more moisture or minus more moisture. So just like my Chewy Snickerdoodle and my Chewy chocolate chip cookie, I basically took the same kind of ingredients in those and put it in here. I just had to figure out, the hard part was figuring out sugar situation, or sweetener. I'll have all the ingredients up on the screen for you as I weigh them, sift them, and whisk them while my butter and sweetener are getting whipped up. You can see it's a lot lighter now. It's a lot stickier than if I were to use golden Monkford erythritol blend. You should have room temperature eggs. Mine is not quite room temperature. Try to get all the way down to the bottom. All incorporated. Now I'm just following spice measurements that I got from a recipe online. If you have a specific soft baked ginger cookie that you've used for years, you can adapt this a little bit, you know, and add extra spices, extracts, whatever you want. Add the dry ingredients all at once. We're gonna have to get some more lighting in this place. I use the smallest of my colored set. I scoop them all, then roll them all. And then they're gonna go in the freezer. And we'll make our ginger snaps while we're waiting on those to freeze. So basically we're rolling these and freezing them just like the Snickerdoodles. They're going to act the exact same way pretty much. The Swerve brown sugar. There's several of those kinds of sweeteners out there. I feel like the golden Monkford erythritol is like the only one of its kind that's not like the Swerve. You got the Sucrin Gold, which is an erythritol blend, and it has some other stuff in it. And then there's So Nutritious, I think it's called. that I've been getting. That one doesn't say gluten-free on it though, but I couldn't use it in the bakery. You don't have to get Swerve, because Swerve is the most expensive. We got 26 here. I think I figured 25 in my recipe. Pretty close. I'm gonna pop these into the freezer and get on to making the ginger snaps. Okay, so for this one, like I can't remember if I used the Swerve or my golden Monkford erythritol. So we're gonna use the Swerve, and if it doesn't turn out, there will be a lesson learned that you can't swap out the wet stuff for the dry stuff. If it does work out, then that's what I used. So 96 grams, a half cup. Whoa, big clump went in. 96 and 96, half cup of each, brown and white. So I'm using the classic Monkford erythritol blend for the white. You can use Swerve too, or any other 1-for-1 alternative sweetener. You're gonna cream that, same fashion, till it's light and fluffy. We're gonna add 1 egg, same here. And then I'm gonna get the dry ingredients weighed out. I'll have all of them up on the screen for you. The only addition I made to this pretty much, besides my other cookies, is egg white protein. 'Cause I'm pretty sure that's what gives a crispy cookie. Everything else is pretty much the same stuff I always use. Bunch of butter stuck. There was only 1 stick of butter. Make sure your butter's nice and soft too, because this will take longer the harder your butter is. Now this makes a lot less cookies than the other recipe. You can easily double this. I was told by someone that tried to sub out egg white protein for unflavored whey. They said it did not work, at least in my cookie recipe. So now you know that. I did hear someone else said beef protein isolate worked. So those are choices you have. I have not experimented yet. I don't think you can just keep out the egg white protein. You can try, but I'm not sure you'll get the same result. Okay, I feel like I remember this. This is how it was, really crumbly. That's a lot of times when I have my crispy cookie recipes or crispy crust recipes, they're usually pretty dry. It's kind of a pain in the butt to work with. You know, my Oreo or my shortbread crust. But these get put right into the oven once we get them into balls and squished down. In this recipe, I just looked up a ginger snap recipe that was highly rated and kind of went off that. And then I used my husband as a guinea pig because I've never really had crispy ginger snap cookies. It was never my thing. I like the chewy cookies. He likes them dipped in milk, so I brought some home and he said they were exactly like a regular ginger snap cookie. I'm taking his word for it. I tasted it and it tastes like a ginger cookie, but it's not something I prefer. Make sure it's all nice and combined in there. Now, the recipe that I looked up called for it being rolled in granular sugar. I don't think it's necessary, especially if you don't want that cooling effect. But if that's the recipe you have used in the past when you were like younger or whatever, then maybe do that. I don't really think it like added much to like the texture or anything of the cookie. I couldn't even tell which ones were rolled in sugar and which ones weren't, so I don't really think it's necessary. The only thing that is necessary with this one is squishing it down quite a bit to get it to flatten out and be crispy. The recipe I looked up said if you want a softer cookie, you can just underbake this a little bit. I didn't try that because I think my soft baked is delicious and I was going for crispy. They do spread quite a bit, so definitely keep them pretty far apart. Take notes on how many this makes because I did a bunch of testing and I don't remember how many I ended up with. I squished it like all the way like that, like pretty flat. How long I baked it for, couldn't tell you. So I'm gonna have to tell you after I bake them. And my oven is still preheated to 350. I'm gonna throw these in. I'm gonna start with 6 minutes and give them a turn and then see where we're at. And while those are going, I'm going to scoop all the rest. Forgot I can do 2 trays at once now. I'm about to switch the other one, turn it. I can do that. Oh. Okay, so I'm gonna give them another 5. Okay, I pulled them out after 5, so that was 11 minutes total. You just want them golden brown around the edges. They gotta cool completely before you move them, otherwise they're gonna be soft. They're soft until they're cool. After this batch comes out of the oven, I'm gonna turn the oven down to 325, and I'm gonna bake some of our soft bake ginger cookies, and then we get to try them. Okay, I don't think these are gonna be crispy when they cool. So I think you have to use the non-brown sugar-like sweetener. I will do another batch today just to make sure, but pretty sure that's probably the only difference that I did. Turning the oven down, 325. I'm gonna open it up a little bit, chill it out. Well, not chill it out, I guess. Cool it down. We'll get our bowls out of the freezer. These ones spread quite a bit also, so I can do 2 at a time. Make sure they don't roll. Okay, these guys, 5 and 5. See how that goes. I'm gonna keep these guys in the freezer. These you can bake right from the freezer. You'll probably need to bake them a little bit longer, the more frozen they are. Same as the Snickerdoodle. Okay, that was 5 minutes. Switch and turn. Another 5. Might need a little bit longer. It's getting harder to do, more pregnant I am. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna pull these out because they are brown around the edges. You don't want to over bake them because they're chewy and soft. And I'm gonna put another pan right in. I am in the process of letting butter soften to make another batch of crispy gingerbread cookies. Okay, so the first ones are a little bit raw in the middle. They're still delicious. I ate a whole one. But I left these in for 1 more minute, and I think they might be good. We might have to turn the temperature down if you have a gas oven. I made these in electric last time, so 325 was good for 10 to 12 minutes, but it could be different now. We'll see how these turn out. And then I'm gonna make some more crispy cookies, and we'll be back to try some. So many cookies. The ones that were the golden, not the swerve, are definitely a lot harder than the ones that have the swerve. They're a little bit soft in the middle, but you just gotta cook them a little bit longer, I think, and you'll be fine. But they get darker around the edges before they're fully cooked. So we're gonna try one of these guys, and then this is a soft baked one. Now, I'm not sure, mine spread a lot more at the bakery, so I'm wondering if it's the oven. I tried this one at 300, so we're gonna break into this one and see how it does inside, because these ones are a little bit raw inside, but they're still super good. They're super soft. That's the kind of cookie I like. We'll break these guys open, get the taste tested. Don't worry, we are gonna work on lighting and everything. Hopefully this sounds okay. That's the other thing I was worried about, is being echoey in here. And make sure your rack of your oven is in the middle. I feel like they baked a lot better at 350 for 13 minutes for the crispy ones on the middle rack. The bottoms didn't get as dark before the tops got dark. So you want to make sure you're on the middle rack in your oven. So these are the crispy ones. They are nice and crispy. But really good dunked in some milk or nut milk. I'm just not a huge crispy ginger cookie fan, but if this is what you're looking for sure. Super ginger flavor. This one was at 300 in my oven after it was frozen for like quite a while. So if you freeze the soft ones for a long time, you might have to turn down your oven a little bit to get them to cook all the way. I also I reused a piece of parchment paper, so I think that's why it got a little bit darker on the bottom, but it's not bad. But these are like super soft baked. And of course, the furnace just fired up. You know, and I like these soft baked ones are just super buttery and soft and delicious. So now, oh, the carb count. Carb count on all these, 1 per for net carbs. There are a lot of sugar alcohols because, face it, cookies are butter and sugar. That's what they are. So eat sparingly, but you don't have to miss out on your Christmas cookies. That's the bottom line. You don't have to eat the sugar-filled ones. Total carbs with sugar alcohols is better than eating a full-on sugary cookie for Christmas. So now you have 9 Christmas cookie recipes. I hope you guys enjoy these recipes. Let me know in the comments below if you make any of them and how they turned out for you. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog links to the full recipe in the description box below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys. Okay, so that was the final cookie recipe that I put out for a holiday cookie. Last year just was crazy. I feel like I'm slacking, but last year was vendor shows, this year it's shipping. But you can see I was kind of annoyed in that video. A lot of stuff happened. I think the reason I was annoyed was because my last couple of days at the bakery before I shut down, where I was going to try and sell like the rest of my stuff, and I had people that had pre-orders for Thanksgiving, we had a huge snowstorm. And the parking lot was wrecked for like 2 or 3 days, and I couldn't sell a bunch of my stuff that I wanted to sell, and I didn't get to shoot that video at the bakery like I wanted to. It was all just a mess. And then we had a blizzard, and I had my baby in a blizzard the same year. We had like 3 or 4 snowstorms where we were snowed in that year. It was a crazy winter in Buffalo. So I was very pregnant. I was like 38 weeks pregnant at that point. I was very out of breath. I mentioned in the video experimenting with the beef protein, and I did figure it out for my vanilla cake and my carrot cake recipe. So it doesn't work 1-for-1 swap. Haven't found anything for whey protein as a 1-for-1 swap that works in fluffy baked goods. But I added more coconut flour and some beef protein, and it has worked. So that was the crispy and the soft. I also have a gingerbread house cookie recipe where I did it in a live stream, but the recipe's right in the description box. So I'll link that up there for you. I'll probably be using it to make a gingerbread house with Van this year. You notice the oven I was using was different. It's the same as the one I still have. I do want to upgrade to a commercial restaurant oven because this just does not bake evenly at all. And the thing that's a problem is doing videos down here with a commercial oven, because that's going to be different than what you guys have at home. So it's kind of like, do I stick with this? But it's harder for me to make big batches of stuff to sell to you guys and ship. So I might end up getting a new oven eventually. I definitely got a better setup here than I did at the bakery. I never did anything with the lighting because I just don't have anywhere to put lights really. But I got my new microphone, which works well. And yeah, I think my videos are a little bit better than they were when I first got this bakery. I do have a bakery tour video, but I might do another one soon because it was before I had everything completely set up in here. But if you'd like to see that, leave me comments below. Now, besides all these cookie videos, I do have Christmas gift videos. I always make my Christmas gifts. So I had the hot cocoa bomb, which I'm going to shoot a new video for. So keep an eye out for that. Hit the bell so that you get notified. A fudge video with a bunch of different fudges. I have a ganache video where I have made truffles for Christmas one year for everybody, like boxes of truffles. Those were a big hit. And then spiced and candied nuts. So I have a lot of different recipes for like gift ideas and stuff like that too. So you can always just search Keto Upgrade and what you're looking for, and I'll probably have a video on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this keto cookie compilation extravaganza video. If you made it this far, leave me a cookie emoji down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed a look at me throughout my years on YouTube, and I hope you got some extra useful information of things I've learned since I put some of these videos out. And I hope you look forward to some new holiday cookie recipes. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and share with all your friends and family. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with more keto, low-carb dessert recipes and just healthy recipes in general. Bye guys. Happy keto low-carb baking and Merry Christmas.